The Soil Whisperers. Chapter 1. Desolation and a Dirt Farmer. The shuttle shuddered through Eldara's atmosphere. Jake Anderson, a weathered man in his 50s, let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Space travel never got easier. Not after 20 years. He glanced at the others, scientists, diplomats. Their faces held a mix of hope and worry. Below, the landscape unfurled like a sick, faded tapestry. What had once been lush green was now browns and yellows. Fields stretched to the horizon, the crops a sickly contrast to the unnatural gleam of towering agridomes. Something had gone very, very wrong here. The shuttle landed in a concrete field, the air smelling faintly of chemicals. A knot tightened in Jake's stomach. This wasn't relief, it was something older. The stink of dying land. The Eldaran delegation was waiting. Tall, thin humanoids, skin a pale lavender, eyes so dark they looked polished. Their patterned robes and formal posture couldn't hide the strain. "Welcome to Eldara," the lead delegate said, his voice a low rasp. "We are grateful for your assistance." Grateful, maybe. Desperate was more like it. Jake's eyes roamed over their faces. Subtle ticks, a hand clenching too tightly, a nervous flick of antennae. Whatever pride these people had left, it was paper thin. Introductions were made, too many names Jake wouldn't remember. Protocol mattered to them, even now. But they cut to the chase quickly. "Your reputation precedes you, Mr. Anderson." There was an edge of disbelief in the official's tone. Jake shrugged, hands shoving deep into his pockets. "I work with dirt. Not everyone likes that." The Eldarans exchanged glances. One of them coughed politely. "Perhaps you misunderstand. Our world's crisis goes beyond traditional agriculture. We need unconventional expertise." Chapter 2. The Language of Soil. The transport skimmed over fields, the color of old bruises. Jake pressed a dusty hand against the view screen. Below, lines like geometric scars crossed the dying earth. He'd seen this type of damage before. Overworked soil, sucked dry of life. No wonder these aliens were in trouble. The farm they landed at could have been a sterile moon crater for all the life it showed. The soil wasn't even soil anymore, just a fine ash-gray powder that kicked up in dust storms with the slightest wind. "Hydroponic units failed 3 cycles ago." The Eldaran farmer's voice was dull, matching the defeated slump of his shoulders. "Nutrient pumps malfunctioned. The spares are substandard. It's useless." Jake crouched, scooping a handful of the dusty earth. It ran through his fingers like sand. No texture, no cohesion, nothing for roots to cling to. This wasn't a farm, it was a graveyard. Something twisted in his gut, the feeling sharper now. It wasn't exactly pity, it was something closer to fury. "And your solution?" The farmer gestured hopelessly at a cluster of droids, their metallic limbs frozen mid-task. "Recalibrate, replace failed parts, more nutrient injections. Treat the symptoms, not the disease," Jake muttered. He was talking to himself as much as the alien. "Disease?" A new voice, female with a sharp edge that cut through the despair. One of the Eldarans stepped forward, her form more slender than the others, her antennae held high. "Introductions are in order," the lead official huffed. "Researcher Zyla, this is Mr. Anderson. She will assist you with your observations." Zyla looked at him with those piercing dark eyes, and Jake got the distinct impression assist wouldn't be quite the right word. More like monitor. Fair enough. Earth had a bad reputation for exporting stubborn old fools like himself. "You want to fix the droids," Jake said to Zyla, ignoring the bristle of annoyance from her superior. "You'll get another harvest, 2 maybe, with diminishing returns. Then the soil finishes dying, and the droids with it." "You speak as if the land is sentient," Zyla retorted, and the challenge in her voice surprised him. He knelt by a dry irrigation ditch, traced a finger in the dust. "Not sentient, alive. You've treated it like a machine, something to plug nutrients into. Earth taught us that lesson the hard way. We almost killed our own world." Chapter 3. Seeds of Resistance. The change in the air wasn't as obvious as the green defiance of Jake's thriving plants. It was a shift of currents, a ripple of unease beneath the Eldaran's usual placating calm. The officials who'd previously tolerated him now watched him with narrowed eyes, their smooth formalities edged with something sharper. Unconventional had become dangerous in the whispers that followed him through the dome corridors. Yet news traveled faster than Agrigen's attempts to stifle it. Jake overheard snatches of conversation between desperate farmers, their voices low but carrying a note that hadn't been there before, a stirring of defiance. His patch of salvaged land now teemed with Eldarans, some drawn by curiosity, others by a hunger that went beyond empty stomachs. They watched him mix compost, turn the soil with hands unaccustomed to such labor, and he felt their skepticism ease into a grudging wonder. It's impossible, one farmer muttered, his antennae twitching as he watched a withered plant perk up after Jake watered it. The scanners show no trace of artificial intervention. Jake just grinned. Earthworms and old banana peels didn't show up on high-tech scanners. It was the hidden work, the small miracles of nature that Agrigen had never bothered to understand. This is where he won, one farmer at a time. But the officials, their positions tied to Agrigen's power, grew more hostile. It reached a head during a meeting Jake had been begrudgingly summoned to. Minister Lorix cleared his throat, the formality heavy in the suddenly too quiet chamber. Your results do not match our projections. This suggests outside influence. Zyla shot a warning glance at Jake, but he wasn't about to play along. Outside influence? The dirt and the water are the same for everyone, Minister. Are you saying I cheat? We're saying your methods are unregulated, another official, a female Eldaran with a crest marking her high status, cut in. The disruption to established agricultural processes is unacceptable. So that's how it was going to be. The dirt farmer was too successful, upsetting their balance. Jake felt Zyla tense beside him, the anger practically radiating off her. Your processes are killing the planet, she blurted out, her usual composure gone. Jake's methods are a lifeline, and you'd rather let Eldara starve than admit it. The council chamber erupted in gasps and agitated chirps. Lorix hammered a closed fist on the table, his face flushed. Researcher Zyla, control yourself. Your insubordination will not be tolerated. Chapter 4. Soil and Sabotage. The sabotage came at night. Not the work of desperate farmers, but something calculated. Jake's carefully nurtured seedlings were uprooted, compost piles scattered, irrigation lines slashed. The next morning, his plot was a battlefield of dying green against the barren earth. Word spread quickly. The officials, their smiles strained, offered condolences and vague promises of investigation. The farmers who had begun to hope watched Jake with a mix of pity and fear. Had they been wrong to put faith in this outsider? But a familiar stubbornness ignited in Jake. Worn work boots crunched on ruined ground. This changes nothing, he told the assembled Eldarans, and he saw a flicker of defiance return to their eyes. Zyla was at his side, no longer just observer, but participant. They want us to give up, she said, her voice low and intense. We start over. The work was even harder the second time. Yet news of his resilience had seeped out on the whispering winds. Farmers Jake had never met appeared at the edge of his field, offering supplies, silent support, sometimes just an extra pair of hands to help recede. One evening, as the twin suns dipped towards the horizon, a confrontation erupted. Jake spotted shifty figures fleeing, tools abandoned near Sabotage saplings. He gave pursuit, his heart pounding more with fury than exertion. He cornered one of the saboteurs, a young Eldaran, eyes wide with terror. Who sent you? Jake snarled, his voice rough. The boy stammered. It's my job. They pay. My family has debts. Suddenly the dirt beneath them churned. A gust of wind flung dust in their faces, forcing Jake back. When his vision cleared, the boy was gone and he was standing alone in the twilight. Zyla arrived moments later, breathless. She'd seen the swirling dust from afar. What happened? She asked, her eyes wide, searching his face. Jake shook his head, a chill running down his spine that had nothing to do with the dipping temperature. I don't know. There was a truth to that, but also a lie, a sense of something within him responding to the violation of the land his hands were trying to heal. Zyla looked at him, a flicker of something new in her eyes. Not just curiosity, but a hint of fear. The connection they'd been forming now had a sharp, dangerous edge to it. Chapter 5. Harvest of Hope, Seeds of Conflict. The nights became a time for sharing secrets. Jake and Zyla huddled in a disused storage room illuminated by the faint glow of bioluminescent lichen. They pored over maps of Elara alongside the small group of farmers who now formed their inner circle. Jake told stories of Earth, the bitter ones, parched soil, rivers poisoned by chemicals, of a people who nearly destroyed their own world in the blind pursuit of profit. His anger at those past mistakes was still raw, even across the vastness of space. "We made every error possible," he admitted, tracing the faded scars of old irrigation lines on the map of Elara. "We put short-term gain ahead of everything and damn near paid for it with our whole planet." The Eldaran farmers listened with grim expressions, their antennae drooping low. But as Jake explained regenerative practices, crop rotation, the intricate dance between plants and life within the soil itself, a flicker of hope returned to their eyes. Zyla was a bridge between worlds. She grasped not just the techniques, but their far-reaching impact. "If the crops return, the rivers can be cleansed," she reasoned, her voice filled with a near-feverish intensity. "The old stories speak of water spirits, dying as the land died. We can bring them back." Jake felt a familiar surge, the stubborn, earth-borne hope taking root in this alien soil. Every field they coaxed back to life wasn't just about food. They were reversing a cycle of destruction, giving Elara a chance to heal itself. Word of their progress leaked out, transforming into something close to legend whispered on the dry winds. Jake's plot, once an object of suspicion, became a pilgrimage site. Farmers arrived exhausted, their eyes filled with desperate last-ditch faith. He couldn't turn them away. Their need was too stark, too familiar. Perhaps Agrigen underestimated the quiet desperation, or perhaps their arrogance blinded them. Regardless, the response was unexpectedly muted. No more sabotage attempts, only a strained official announcement that the experimental project was yielding promising results, and more land would be allocated. "They've changed tactics," Zyla warned, her face pale in the luminescent glow. "Why fight a movement when you can own it?" Jake swore, a string of earth curses useless on this distant world. He knew that game corporations swooping in, rebranding a revolution as a product to sell. The green expanse of his fields, the jubilant faces of farmers holding baskets, overflowing with the season's harvest. A victory, hard-won and tainted with the sour taste of what was to come. Because in the sky above, sleek corporate ships descended. The battle for Eldara's soil hadn't been won, only transformed. And Jake, the dirt farmer turned unlikely hero, now faced a foe far more insidious than dying crops. It was another kind of earth lesson. Fighting greed with your bare hands was a battle that never truly ended. Chapter 6, Soil and Stars. The Agrigen ships gleamed like predatory insects, their arrival casting long shadows over Jake's fields. No longer sabotage, but a show of force masquerading as collaboration. Smiling executives offered contracts, not threats, the velvet glove over the iron fist. Resistance was complicated now. The Eldarans, desperate for any solution, saw Agrigen's promises of scaled-up technology and boosted yields as their salvation. Even within Jake and Zyla's circle, cracks appeared. Some farmers, tired of scraping by, were seduced by promises of ease and profit. Jake felt trapped. With every field Agrigen took over, the land lost a piece of its hard-fought soul. His connection to the soil seemed tenuous against their machines, his whispers to plants drowned out by chemical fertilizers. Zyla, too, was changed. No longer wide-eyed with hope, her idealism was tempered by the harsh realities of power. They were not just fighting for Eldara's soil now, but against the allure of corruption and the apathy it bred. And yet a defiant core remained. Farmers who remembered the days of barren dust, who'd felt the change in their own hands. They became guerrilla gardeners, planting pockets of resistance in hidden corners, their faith as stubborn as Jake's own. One night, under the cover of darkness, they struck at the heart of Agrigen's operation, the vast, sterile seed banks. Zyla, using her fading credentials, gained them access. Inside, it wasn't sabotage, but an act of defiant creation. They scattered Jake's heirloom earth seeds, brought as a gesture of hope, now a weapon of resilience. The battle wasn't a single victory. It was 1,000 small acts of rebellion. Tomatoes bursting forth on sterile balconies, ancient grains salvaged by elders, sprouting defiance in Agrigen's uniform fields. Each victory was small, easily crushed, but the spirit was spreading like wildfire. Jake, now more grizzled, more legend than man, found himself a symbol. Not a savior, but a reminder. Eldara's soil and its people held the solution, if only they could fight off the poison of easy answers and remember how to nurture, not exploit. The ending is bittersweet. The war isn't over, the earth remains scarred. But as Jake stands on a balcony overlooking a city where patches of vibrant green defy the sterile domes, he sees children playing in the reborn dirt. There's dirt under their nails, hope in their eyes, and perhaps a future worth fighting for.